my hero. This is my boy.
This is my boy.
I don't want this to be my hero.
I was like, this is the hero of your people.
This is just the beginning of... I'm sure if you look at the beginning of American comic superhero movies,
this was
good.
Probably better.
Yeah.
But hey.
Yeah. So
there's a high bar.
In this day and age, there's a high bar to set.
Yes, there is.
Are we recording?
Absolutely.
Cool. So, what up, punks?
What up, punks?
What up, punks? Also, my throat is kind of sore.
What'd you do?
I'll explain.
You'll get into it.
Yeah, I won't to spend too much time on it, but I'll explain why I'm tired and sore.
I'm excited.
So, what up, punks? Welcome back to another episode of the Pop Culture Punks podcast. I'm your host, Phil, and across from me is your boy,
Josh.
Today, we will be discussing a movie called Rendel, Dark Vengeance. And to explain why we're talking about this random movie that you've probably never heard of before, other than maybe we've told the story about it before, is that today is
when this episode will air.
When this episode airs, which is when you're listening to it, or
yep.
If you listen to it later, then it's not, but it will be April Fool's. And this is sort of an April Fool's spoof. We're spending an entire episode talking about a movie that nobody's ever heard of.
Correct. Except, wasn't it, we were at Best Buy one time.
For some reason, they had it at Best Buy.
And it was just sitting on the shelf, and we were like, we're watching that movie. And we did.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Like a year and a half later, or whenever it was.
Yeah, I don't remember what it... We went there for... I think you were picking up a movie that had just come out or something.
Yeah.
And me, you, and Zach, I think, went to... No, what were we getting? We went to Best Buy to buy a movie that we wanted to watch that night, I think.
I think you're right.
And we went there.
Yeah.
And we were like, should we get this instead?
Yeah.
And watch this? And Zach was like, I don't want to watch that.
I don't want to.
And me and you were like, we're getting this at some point.
We're doing it.
And then like a year later, we're like, are we doing Rendel? And then we still didn't do it. But then we finally like fit it in because April Fool's. It's a little bit of a spoof. And April is officially the month of heroes.
For us. As
not necessarily by design, but mostly because this month has way too many superhero movies coming out.
Yeah. And like apparently good ones. Like
good
apparently
ones, yeah.
Shazam has gotten a lot of...
Shazam is 93% right now.
Yeah.
So that's better than a lot of Marvel movies on Rotten Tomatoes.
Which you should go back and listen to our episode on that, which was called Shazam Gesundheit, because I'm...
Oh yeah, we did have a movie.
So, because we did like a prediction
I'm going to have to listen to that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious how right we were, and maybe we weren't right at all.
I feel like I was going to be pretty right, but I'm always...
I
feel like I was
pretty right.
I'm usually pretty hopeful about DC, though, so...
Well, and I think I've mentioned it a couple times, but episode 41, and it's only an hour 15, which is...
Oh, wow. That was like
less than our usual, but... Yeah, so episode 41 if you're interested. But yeah, I remember being really excited because I was hearing stuff that the director is coming more from like an indie horror scene and is like a smaller, I don't want to say like a small director, but he's not coming from like a recent Marvel movie or like, a past DC film. Like he was just a new dude. And so, and everything he was saying in an interview I listened to him in, I think he's just a passionate filmmaker and wanted to do a really good job.
And apparently like the trailers don't tell you anything about the movie. Like people are saying like, because Fandango, I think, did a thing where you could watch it early last weekend. Yeah. So a lot of people on like Reddit were saying like the trailers literally tell you nothing about what happens in the movie.
Good.
There was a couple things that got spoiled with like the Funko Pops and stuff. Yeah. But yeah, like I got some things spoiled. I won't talk about them, but
sure.
There's some like horror elements even in it. And I was like, oh, frick, I invited Evan to this because I thought it was going to be, like, lighthearted.
And you're like, it's like Zach, what's his name? I can't remember his last name, but who plays Shazam? Or, like, Big Shazam, I guess.
Oh, what is his name? I'm blanking now.
It's like Zach something. Crud, whatever. Got the computers, but I'm lazy.
Got the computers. I'll look it up. But, yeah, so I've been hearing really good things about it, and it looks... I'm just so stoked now.
Definitely.
After hearing some things.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is going to be so good.
Absolutely.
Like, it's just crazy.
Yep.
So
sick.
Yeah.
Well, you want to dive in? So that's just a little shout out. So yeah, that's a good palette, establishing basically every episode this month of April is going to be related to
something related to superheroes. Yeah.
And so we didn't want to make fun of like, and honestly, like this episode isn't even necessarily to make fun of.
Yeah, we might dive into something completely different.
Surprisingly, I actually kind of liked it in a weird way. I have my reasons, but
I figured you would after I saw it. So
yeah,
I'm interested to hear what your opinion is.
Definitely.
Before we go, Zachary Levi is his name.
Levi.
I don't want to leave us sounding like noobs.
Yeah. Zach something.
So yeah, Shazam's gonna be good. We got the Avengers movie coming out at the end of April.
I'm not ready.
Yeah. So
Ugh.
and Hellboy also comes out this month. But
Definitely.
We
He's like
probably
kind
won't
of
be doing
a-
that episode till
Yeah, we're
later
going to be
with
meeting up
Imperious,
with Imperious Rex.
but that won't be this month, so don't get excited.
Correctamundo.
Yeah, and then we got a couple other superhero stuff planned because we don't want to just talk about movies because we've been doing that for a long time.
Yeah.
So there's some video game stuff and other craziness, and hopefully it'll be a little more posy this month.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a long string of things that turned out to not be very good.
Right, yeah.
So hopefully April will be the month of heroes and the month of posy vibes.
Just positivity.
Positivity.
Yep.
So
dope.
yeah. Before we get into the pop culture Rex, I'll explain my tiredness because so we can get that
As
on
long
the
as
table.
it's funny. That's all I care about.
It's a little bit funny. So yesterday was my friend Brandon's bachelor party.
Oh, boy.
Shout out to Brandon.
Yeah, buddy.
And we did it in Minneapolis. So they went out Friday night, but I decided not to. I decided to go on Saturday just because I knew I was going to be too tired to do like everything because they had a really long itinerary like for this thing.
Got to get it all in before you know.
Before you get married.
Can't.
Yep.
Before you can't anymore.
Yep. So Jacob and I carpooled and we left at 5:30 a.m. yesterday and we drove to Minneapolis 4 hours. We got there, we got breakfast, we went to the Mall of America for a couple hours. Then after that, we went to a casino and hung out there. And apparently casinos are the only place that you're still allowed to smoke inside. So
Really?
Yeah.
It's pretty smoky.
My eyes dried out after like 3 hours of being in there. So
Did you win anything?
I only lost I only gambled for a little bit with like $20. I had $40 that I brought, and I was like, if I lose this, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
And that was about all I was gonna do.
You lost it all.
And then I lost
Bet it all
20.
on
I lost
white.
$20 because I got bored and just stopped playing. But then for the last hour, I just hung out and watched them play blackjack because
Cool.
there was like 5 guys on
yeah.
a table playing some blackjack, so I just watched them. And then so fast forward, we dinner and all that stuff, and then we went to this dope place. I forget what it's called. I think it's called like Whirly Ball something, Minnesota. And I'll explain what Whirly Ball is because that doesn't make any sense when you say it.
It sounds like a drug thing because you said we went to this dope place and it's called Whirly Ball. And I was like, whoa.
Dope isn't cool, not as in drugs.
Now we're talking.
But like you walk in and it feels like something straight out of like the 90s, early 2000s.
Sick.
Like just like a sick place with like pool tables and a bar and like laser tag and stuff. So like we get there, we had laser tag booked for like 30 minutes and then this Whirly Ball thing. So we play laser tag first and we're all hanging out. And at this point it's 9 o'clock at night. So I'm like dead from hanging out all day.
Oh, absolutely.
But I had a Monster Energy drink at 9 p.m. just to get
Oh
myself
my
through those last 3 hours.
Dude, what are you doing?
So I had a Monster Energy drink to get myself through those last 2 hours because like we had this whole thing where me and Jacob drove back to the hotel, which is like a half an hour away.
Yeah.
And then we realized we only had like 15 minutes to actually chill.
Oh,
so we like drove an
goodness.
hour just to like chill basically for 15 minutes. So like on the way back to the Whirly Ball place, I was like falling asleep because I was so tired. So I get an energy drink and then we play laser tag, which oh my gosh, like, and it was like a private thing, so it was just us.
Yes. Did you pull in some noobs?
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
So
no doubt.
the first round we did was free for all, which oh my gosh, laser tag
That
free for all
sounds
is the
incredible.
worst. It's the worst thing in the world. I was so scared. Like there was 8 of us total, I think. And it was a decent sized thing, but like every corner you turn, there's a freaking person there like ready to shoot you. And I'm just like, I don't know. I'm the kind of person like when I'm in a group like that, I just go all out and get nuts. And for some reason, so I'm like, I'd turn a corner and I'd see someone and I'd just like screech and I'd be like screaming like, oh my God. I'd be like just yelling. And so like, that's part of why I lost my voice. And so, yeah, like the first round was free for all and the second round was free for all, but we were playing as if we were on teams because he forgot to switch the mode over.
Oh, sure.
So like we could shoot each other. And then the third round was teams. And I think the third round, my team won. The first round, I got the most points. And the second round, my team lost, but I still got the most points, I think.
Nice.
So I did pretty good.
So you're bringing those Call of Duty skills to the real world.
Yeah. So despite all of my screaming and tibbiness, apparently I was doing good. And then after that, we did this thing called Whirly Ball, which is basically like you're in bumper cars, but you have...
Oh, I think I've heard of that.
You have like a little lacrosse thing.
Yeah, and it's like lacrosse with bumper cars, isn't it?
Yeah, it's lacrosse with bumper cars.
Oh
and
my
the cars
goodness.
are not very functional. It's got like this weird like spinny thing.
Yeah.
And like left makes you turn right, and right makes you turn left.
Oh my
and
goodness.
then you rotate it to like rotate around.
Yeah.
And so like it's very non-intuitive. So it's just like people riding around like
like spinning in circles.
And like again, I for some reason feel the need to scream at everything. So like I'd be like playing offense.
Now there's a car involved.
And the defense would be over there, and my team would get it, and I'd be like, bad, and I'd be like screaming as loud as I possibly can, like across the court. And
that's incredible.
So
nice.
So my voice is needlessly shot today for absolutely no reason.
Oh, not needlessly. That was earned.
So it was super fun.
Dope.
I didn't expect it to be as fun as it was, but it was just so hilarious and so crazy.
That sounds fantastic.
I want to do it again at some point. So, yeah, that's why my voice is shot, and that is why I'm very tired. But
so if all of a sudden you space out on me,
if I start falling asleep, just do something. I don't know. Do whatever you can.
I've got some water here.
Just keep on talking.
Yeah.
People are like, where did Phil go?
So Phil fell asleep. I'm going to take the rest of the show from here, and we're going to talk about Star Wars.
I wake up and be like, wait.
And then why are you going to put Rose at the end of the movie? And just,
how do we get
all
into Star
again,
Wars?
all over again.
So, yeah, that was why I'm extremely tired and worn out, but it was a lot of fun.
It's understandable.
Shout out to my boys.
Shout out to the boys.
Yeah. So, what have you been up to this week?
All right.
Pop culture stuff.
This is actually a fuller week than past weeks, so I'm kind of excited about that. So a lot of games, but before that, I did find this band probably a month ago on Spotify, which shout out to Spotify. I was on Apple Music for a while, but I jumped over, and the app sucks. However, I do like the recommendations.
Spotify sucks?
Yeah, like the app, like I've had it just crash out on me numerous times. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Drives me nuts.
I've never had it crash before.
Well, some of us are luckier than others, aren't they? But I found this band called Strung Out, and they're like a California punk band. But if you listen to them, they're almost punk in the way that people would probably classify Rise Against as punk, where
like rock and roll punk.
Yeah, where it's not like pop punk and where it's like upbeat and like more, rhythmic, but it's also not like it sounds almost two steps from like a metal band.
Wikipedia is saying punk rock, skate punk, melodic hardcore, post-hardcore, alternative metal. So that's a very wide range of
and
genre.
they're awesome. Like I
feel like I've heard
found
of
them on
before.
accident, and I was like, dang, this is probably up there as if I had to say like a favorite punk band, like these guys probably became them, just because they're the closest comparison I can make is to Rise Against, and just that the vocalist has a more unique sound and a
more
rhythm.
rough, raspy.
Yeah, he's kind of got that rough, raspy, but it's a little bit higher pitched. But then they also have melodically, like they're very almost like thrashy, but they're not as like, it's not as crunchy as like a thrash metal band or something, or even a regular metal band. So highly recommend them.
I'll have to check them out. I feel
Yeah.
like I have heard of them before because they're on Fat Wreck, which I've
sure.
listened to a lot of those bands in the past. So
Cool.
I'll have to check them out.
Yeah, so Strung Out. And then game-wise, shout out to B-Lands 3, because I'm real excited about that. Yeah. And I didn't think I was going to be, but then seeing it officially, it was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be... I think I'm at a place where not that I'm like into online gaming, but I'm more willing to work with friends to...
Well, and I think it's the kind of game where like you really don't need to play with people online.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas like Destiny or Division, it's like at some point like the game's really only fun if you're playing with people.
Right.
In my mind.
Yeah.
So like, but this game is fun with or without people.
Definitely.
But it's more fun with people. So
Absolutely.
It's kind of worth coordinating.
Yeah, and I think even feeling too that the pressure of not having to play it every freaking free second I have, just because I'm not going to fall behind on gear.
You don't need to
like
compete with anyone.
Yeah, exactly. You're just kind of progressing through. So as a result of the Borderlands 3 announcement, my cousins and I plugged in. Oh my gosh, it probably like, I don't even want to know how many hours in 2 days. Like we literally yesterday played from like 1 until about 5:30.
Yeah, buddy.
And then from about 8:30 to 11:30, so probably close to 8 hours yesterday.
Solid work day.
And then today yeah, absolutely. And then today we played like another 4 or 5, I think. So we chugged, man.
Nice.
Like we went from 0 to 20 in 2 days, so feeling good. But they haven't they've never dove very deep into it. So I was like, well, I've restarted this game like 10 times. Why not one more? And so now we're finally at where I've left off like every single time. And then we're going to be playing it next weekend again for a big chunk.
Oh, cool.
So
how many people? Is it just 3 of you?
It's 3 of us. Yeah. Zach was on yesterday.
I should catch up and then I can play with you guys at some point.
Definitely. But yeah, so I think I just feel I enjoy the game more, and just as I've enjoyed shooters and just like the humor and stuff too. Like I just appreciate the jokes and a lot of the stuff that gets thrown in and the references. It still has one of my favorite game missions ever, where you go into the sewer and you have to deliver pizza to these like mall rat or these mall rat. He's like mall rat. He's like they're called like tunnel rats or something.
Tunnel rats,
but they're all named silly names that are derivative of the Ninja Turtles.
Yep.
And
they talk like them. They're kind of like,
they're like,
the pizza's here, dude.
Pizza's here. Yeah, it's great.
But then they try and kill you.
Yeah, like one of them's named like Danny or something, or like Dan.
Yeah, it's like
instead of Donnie.
You could tell very much that they're trying to riff on it.
Yeah, it's like I think there's a callback. Zach caught it this time, where there's a callback when you first get the mission from the lady from Sanctuary. She's like, yeah, and like they're not meant to be trifold with, or something. It's like some line from the old 80s cartoon theme song, and he was like, ha, I get it. So yeah, it's just incredible. It's so much fun.
I love the humor in those games. It's so like juvenile in a sense, but like in a
smart
classy way.
Yeah,
like a smart way.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So Borderlands 2 jumped hard back into that, so that has been a lot of fun. And I was taking a break from Bloodborne just because I'm like, I think I played it 2 days. It's same thing. Like it was a game that I quit a long time ago and I lost all my progress. So I tried to catch up. So I kind of felt more into it. And then as a result of that, I got burned out super quick because it's a stupid hard game.
Yep.
So to take a breather, I played Spyro Reignited for a little bit, and that was just the most calming experience ever. It's very relaxing.
Nice.
It's a very relaxing
just
game.
A dragon shooting fire.
Just a dragon
collecting gems,
poking dudes in the bum with your giant horns. That's exactly the sound it makes too. No, it's not. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So lots of games and Strung Out.
Cool.
Yeah.
I haven't done a ton in the way of gaming. I beat Spider-Man, which hit me right in the heart. That
ending is.
And they hinted at a sequel with maybe a little Miles action. Would be awesome. What else did I do? I was gonna jump into the Batman games, but then I decided not to. For some reason, I'm burnt out on video games right now. So like I went back to comics. So pretty much the only 2 things I really completed or like gotten close to completing are League of Extraordinary Gentlemen by Alan Moore.
Nice.
Which was pretty good. It's basically a comic where like he takes like old like English like characters from novels. So I think Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is one of them.
Is Sherlock in there?
No. Well, he might be in at some point, but he's not one of the main characters.
Okay. It's like old English fiction.
One of the guy from like 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Okay. Yeah.
Pretty much, like old English fiction characters.
Cool.
And he kind of like, it's basically like Watchmen in a way. He's like deconstructing English literature and showing like that these people are actually kind of dysfunctional in the way that they were written in that time and stuff. But then they're kind of like this group of people that like solves crimes and fights evil and stuff. So it's been pretty cool. And I enjoy Alan Moore's writing because he has a very interesting way of going about things. So it's been good so far.
Definitely.
And then the other one is called, I feel like you'd enjoy this one.
Is this the one you referenced last week where there was like a spin-off of the series with like Punisher Batman or whatever the frick his name is?
Yeah, the Batman Who Laughs.
Yep. Yeah,
so that what I talked about last week is a spin-off of this series that I started. So I went back and because I've been listening to, that's another thing I've been doing is listening to a lot of interviews with like comic pros and like Neil Gaiman and stuff because like just motivates me to like come up with ideas and write and like do stuff. So like listening to a lot of like Scott Snyder, he also wrote the New 52 Batman, the Court of Owls with Greg Capullo. And then when they did DC Rebirth, they have Tom King writing Batman now. So Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo are working on this series called Dark Knight's Metal, which is like basically like this heavy metal, like there's a lot of heavy metal references and like visual aesthetics and stuff, but like it's called an event book, so it's like this large event with all the characters, and it's like this crazy like universe shattering thing or whatever. And I'm like halfway through the first like hardcover trade or whatever, and like it's super insane. Like this like band of evil Batmen like uses Batman to like come into his universe. I think it's called the Nightmare Realm or something, or the Nightmare or the
Sounds epic.
dark universe, where like it's basically like this dark thing that exists under all other universes.
Sure.
That's like the nightmare version. So like there's like these 7 Batmen, which I kind of explained last week, but I got more context into what they are. It's like these 7 Batmen that are like Batman's worst nightmares about what he could become or something like that. And so like the Batman Who Laughs is basically like, I think it's the Batman that happens when Batman kills the Joker.
Oh,
and when
interesting.
if the Joker gets killed, he like emits this toxin that turns the next person into the Joker or something. So like the Joker can't die, and so like Batman turns into the Joker.
Batman
kind
is
of
in this universe.
So he's got like these Robins.
I found
the
a
Robins,
picture.
and they like just eat people, and it's really creepy. But like visually, it's just like this super like metal. Like Greg Capullo is always getting these like rock fists, like he
Emojis
sneaks them
and
in
stuff,
there and
yeah.
stuff.
Dope.
Because Greg Capullo is like a big like metalhead, so
That's tight.
But his comic art is fantastic, and Scott Snyder's writing is just really good for comics. So I'm enjoying that so far.
Good.
Yeah,
I'm excited to check that out. Is it coming to a close soon, or is it still kind of in its peak right now?
I think it's coming to a close.
Okay.
Because they have another comic, which is like their last hurrah with Batman. I think it's called The Last Night on Earth. And the cover looks awesome. It's like a silhouette of Batman holding like this lantern with the Joker face in it. Oof. And I don't know what it means, but it looks dope.
Tight.
And they describe it as like Batman's like last tale. So apparently everybody who writes Batman has to like both have like a Genesis story. So Scott Snyder did like 0 Year or something.
Yeah.
And then this is kind of like Batman's
the
like,
ending
end story, like death story. So, and it's on Black Label as well.
Cool.
Which basically means nothing at this point because they
retract
they neutered
everything.
it.
Yeah, neutered.
Some might say
they neutered it. Neutered.
But it looks dope, so I put it on my pull list at the comic shop.
Sweet.
Because I was like, let's go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think
Good
that's
deal.
mostly what I've been into. There was
Cool.
also that, I think I told you about this, but a super good interview on Tim Ferriss's podcast with Neil Gaiman.
Oh yeah. I haven't had a
Super
chance to
good.
check it out, but
So I think
looking
I've listened to
forward to
it
that.
twice through already. So
nice.
So
Yeah, I'll have to check that out.
his voice is just really soothing for some reason. I don't know why.
The few times I've gotten the masterclass ad on YouTube with him, I always listen all the way through because it's just like,
You're just like,
when you're writing and you're a young writer, and it's just all this stuff. I'm like, yes.
yeah, and he's got
Love
like
it.
really good inflection that like
Yep.
draws you in. You're like, what are you gonna say next?
What are you gonna say, Neil?
Yeah,
What are you gonna say?
I definitely want to get that masterclass at some point.
Definitely,
'Cause
yeah,
it
that'd be
looks
worth
like
it.
it'd be good.
That'd be absolutely worth it.
So yeah, I think that's the extent of what I've done
Nice,
this week. So
cool.
yeah, so Rendel,
I have a lot of So
I'm gonna start out by explaining what the movie is, so people know.
That's a great idea.
So Rendel is described as Finland's first superhero, and it takes place in Finland, I think.
And it's a foreign film.
It's a foreign
technically.
film, yeah, with really weird voice acting or something. I don't know. We'll get into that. But yeah, it takes place in Finland. Like the voice actors are clearly speaking in Finnish, but like it comes out as English. I don't know how they did that, but so yeah, it's a Finnish film, and he's a Finnish superhero. So it kind of has like that cultural dissonance that you feel sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
Like in the movie, I'm like, I don't really get some of the.
Is this a reference?
Is there like cultural commentary happening here that I don't get?
Yeah,
like the stuff. So
definitely.
So yeah, and his costume is just like this like biker suit, black, like I don't know. It just looks super brutal. Like, the reason we wanted to do it because of the costume. I think like when you look at the cover,
we're like, ooh,
yeah, you'll see it. We'll probably have it included in the photo for this episode or something. But his suit is just like a cross between like Batman and like some other heroes.
My comment was, it looks like one of the guys from Mushroom Head became a superhero. Essentially,
I'd agree with that.
Like it's like as if one of them was going to their gig and then got pulled aside with his helmet still on. Like that's what his mask looks like. So if you're trying to picture one of the guys from Mushroom Head, essentially.
Yeah.
If you know who they are, but just Google it. It'll be funny.
I wanna say my thoughts after having watched it were, it wasn't terrible. It felt like
My barometer for bad movies has been put so low after Death Note.
I know, yeah.
I was like, all right, this is all right.
So my feeling for him as a superhero,
yeah,
after watching the film, it felt like a very poor understanding of like almost like a mashup between Batman, the Punisher, and maybe a little bit of Rorschach from Watchmen.
Yeah,
like he had like the visual and like superhero aesthetic of like Batman, but like he had like the morals in a sense of like the Punisher.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like he did some things where I'm like, yeah, even the Punisher probably wouldn't do that. Like,
yeah.
Like there was like a strip club scene where like all of a sudden everybody in the strip club's like dead, and I'm like, did he do that? Like,
I think you're thinking.
Does he just have a?
I think you're thinking of Death Note.
Was that Death Note?
That was Death Note, dude.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, frick! I'm getting all these movies mixed up in my head.
Yeah, because I was like, I don't remember that scene. Like,
okay, so his the way of going about things is more like the Punisher then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with a little bit of like the line at the
terrible.
beginning reminded me of Rorschach.
Yeah.
Where he has that quote about like all of the miscreants and the whores will look upon for me, and I will look down upon them, and I will say no. And the first line of this movie is literally
go for it.
Listen to me, you spineless scumbags and immoral bastards.
And
that's the first line of the movie.
First line of the movie.
And then it cuts to like a weird scene with like really weird like Finnish dance pop music, and I'm like, this is not how you made me feel like the movie was gonna go.
Yeah, no, not at all.
So yeah, that's the kind of superhero I interpreted him as. I'm curious what your thoughts were on him as a hero.
So specifically as a hero. So
in comparison to maybe other.
Yeah, sure. I think he definitely is closest to Punisher, and it's interesting because have you ever seen The Crow with Brandon Lee?
I don't think so.
Okay, because if anyone who has seen that movie, there's a hint of that in there where, so The Crow, the movie of The Crow, kind of the general synopsis is you have Brandon Lee's character who's just like this guy in this like really terrible city, and it's kind of like very gothic post-apocalyptic. It's not even like post-apocalyptic, but it's just a horrible city. It's like a horrible place that's overrun with corruption and like, you know, gang type violence in the sense of like a mob or a mafia.
Yeah.
He and his girlfriend get murdered. This crow or like spirit basically resurrects him, and so as a like more or less like ghost, he goes around exacting his revenge. It's a dope movie. Highly recommend it. It's super cool. But there's like a little bit of that vibe in this where I almost felt like he isn't necessarily even like a Punisher or a like as an American superhero where he has like an overall guiding principle guiding him. It was like a singular event that made him do what he's doing. So it wasn't like
his origin story was similar to the Punisher's in a sense.
It was, yes.
But the way they, we'll get into that. But the way they presented it was, it didn't make any sense. But
we'll see. We'll talk about it. So I have some thoughts on that. But so I kind of understood him almost as if like they took maybe the execution in terms of his actual actions from the Punisher and melded him with like the driving desire of the Crow from that movie.
Okay.
Where it's more, again, he's not coming from, you know, my goal is to get rid of all evil people because all evil people are bad and need to be exterminated and there's no other better way. It was more like these D-bags killed my family, so I'm going to go kill them. Like that was it.
Yeah, I think the problem for me a lot of the time was like, other than like just believing at face value that these people were like gangsters or something.
Yeah.
And so like all gangsters are bad and deserve to get killed. But like they didn't really make me believe that these people were bad until like halfway through the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what is this thing with the corporations and the vaccines? Like, is this an anti-vax movie? Like, they're like poisoning like, oh no, the bad guy are like, how much, like, how are they somehow making money sending vaccines to third world countries? Like, how is that a profit-driven venture?
No.
And so it was like this weird collusion between like a corporation and like these gangsters.
Well,
but,
I think that was the thing.
They're giving the vaccines to like poor people in third world countries and like poisoning them. But like, how is that making any money? Like, so they didn't establish like the people that he was like fighting against.
Yep.
Other than like just believing in my mind, like, okay, so it's a Punisher type character.
You're suspending disbelief.
So he might be. He's basically like rooting out evil in this city. And so I had to suspend disbelief, like, and just believe that these people were bad,
right?
In a sense,
right?
And so like the whole movie, until you get to the part where they show you actually what happened, which was weird to me. And then you're like, oh, okay, now I get why he's actually mad at these people,
right?
Without having to just take it at face value,
right? Yeah,
so I think that's why it felt a little bit off, was because like
definitely
I didn't fully believe that he was justified in like rooting out like why are these people evil? Maybe I'm missing something culturally.
No,
like maybe Finland has this weird thing with vaccines. I don't know.
It could be. And I honestly, that was one of the things that I think was difficult watching it, is I wasn't sure how, I don't know. This movie was a bad movie, but it was a bad movie the way I would maybe categorize Super Mario Bros. Or Punisher Warzone, where they're like, Punisher Warzone is just so corny. Like when he like descends from the chandelier and like everyone's like exploding as if they're made of like strawberry jam, and then he like punches that dude's head in, and it literally just like
explodes the dude's head with his fist.
And it's just like, it's kind of like one of those movies where it's, but
it's egregious for the sake of being egregious.
Yeah, and it's like, and not even just like the violence, but even just the story of Punisher Warzone, like, is not very, it's not held well together. Yeah. Like, it's not.
Yeah, and I would say the story is almost the weakest part.
I would 100%
in this one, where like, I could tell what they were kind of trying to do. Like, it was trying to like have this weird like mental, like, you weren't sure what was really happening. Like, what timeline are we in? And I kind of dug that part a little bit. We're like, so this is like after the fact.
Yes.
But I think they took for granted that like with a hero like this, like the origin story is important for establishing like why he's on this vendetta in the first place. But they give us the origin story. Like, I checked the clock and it was like an hour into the movie. And I was like, now I finally understand why you're like killing all these people.
Right.
That would have been helpful.
Yeah.
And I see why they did it that way, because of the way they were writing it.
Yep.
But I don't think it was written well because of that fact. Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm curious what your thoughts are on it. Maybe we disagree on. Maybe this is the first time we'll disagree on something.
Well, so I think I should clarify why I'm probably going to disagree. Like, all the criticisms I think are perfectly warranted.
Yeah.
I was being very serious when I said that Death Note ruined bad movies for me. Like my, and not even ruined. I think if anything, it gave me an appreciation for this movie,
good bad movies,
because it was like, this movie, there were scenes that when I like sat through it, I was like, there was something there. Like, there were like, if you would have done some more things, this, like, I saw potential. Like, there were things that I was like, this could have been actually amazing. Death Note, I was like, this is crap and should never have existed. Like, that was kind of my feeling. Whereas this movie, I had a whole list of stuff where I was like, there's a lot here, actually, that I'm like, if they did a few things and kind of played up certain things, this could have actually been a really awesome kind of like indie hero in a way. But in terms of the story and like the driving thing, I think I wrote, what did I say? I said I liked the storytelling order because it kept me focused, but I don't know if that was necessarily a good or a bad thing. Like, I was, because I was paying attention, I was like, okay, where are we in the timeline? I'm assuming this guy is Rendel because I just am. And then it's like, oh, it's not Rendel. Oh, no. Yeah. Oh, it's Rendel. Okay, this guy is Rendel.
You could tell the effect they were going for with like that's not actually him.
Yeah.
And then, that is him, but they did it in like a 2-minute span.
Yeah.
Like, they show him get back up after a while. You're like, oh, okay.
You're
so
like,
I knew this the whole time then, basically. Like, this, there wasn't like any sort of meaningful payoff in a sense, because like they just confirmed that your suspicions were right,
exactly,
in a sense.
And part of me, and I think this is where a lot of the confusion came in for me. It was like, okay, I'm all in rooting for this guy. Like, he seemed like he had a nice family. I want him to kick these dudes' butts.
I also, he wasn't, I didn't really get, like, where, like, I agree with you. I liked his character, too, and he seemed like a nice dude, and, like, he's just trying to, like, do what's best for his family, but obviously you find out that he really isn't doing what's best for his family because they're dead, but
I will say that, I don't know, like, and again, it's an... I
just didn't believe that he was that strong. Like, he was just like a financial guy for a business. I'm like, where
did you learn all this stuff?
It's not like Frank, who was in a war. It's not like Bruce Wayne, who went and trained with ninjas for like 5 years.
In the Alps for, exactly.
So, like, this guy is like, did he all of a sudden just
He's
muster
an
up the
accountant
strength
who basically, like, learned kung fu and how to kill people brutally without remorse. So, yeah, there are a lot of things like that. And it's hard because I think it's not necessarily that I even like disagree with anything you're saying. I think anything that we dive into is absolutely going to be like, there's a lot of stuff here.
I'm
that
curious
is not
then,
very well done.
Instead of kind of doing what we've been doing for the past weeks.
Right.
I think we talked about this a little bit before, but I'm
Yeah.
curious, maybe we should dive into like what are the nuggets that are there that
Sure.
like if they had been done in a different way, like
Definitely.
that could have made this movie better maybe.
Yeah.
And we can
absolutely.
kind of dive
Yeah,
into that
sure.
a little bit. Not that we're expert filmmakers, but I think as from your perspective, having some sort of idea about creating scenes and creating things.
Yeah.
And then also just as people who have watched a ton of superhero movies and kind of
right.
know at this point like what works and what doesn't, and talk about like
For sure.
what could this movie have done better maybe.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. Yeah, so I think to clarify too, like I think the reason I was really hard on Ready Player One and Death Note is one, I do think we have to acknowledge that we were coming from source material, and it absolutely, I don't think that wasn't our criticism of it, but I think we had a contextual thing to be like, this was like not even laughably even remotely close to this source.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, it's very bad, but in the same way with like the Mario movie, it's like I don't really have anything else to compare this to. You know,
Yeah.
like I'm not even gonna compare it to the game because it's not. You know, or like Punisher Warzone, it's like this is just its own thing, and like some of the comics are that ridiculous, so
Yep.
it kind of is embracing that.
Yeah, some
So with
scenes
this-
in there are pulled directly from the comics. so-
Right. So with this movie, I think because I had no idea what to expect.
Yeah.
There was a lot that I think happened that I was like, that was really good. And there were some things that were well done. There were a lot of things also though that were very, 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 very poorly done. And if it was an American movie, it would have been lambasted. So
Oh, yeah.
the main thing being the whole vaccine mega corporation thing, I had no idea like what the significance of that was.
Yeah.
Like I was just absolutely confused as to why they're bad. It's just basically that they're like a gang essentially too, that's run by the sun.
It's a gang that's somehow like, for some reason, this corporation decided to use a gang to like distribute their vaccines for them, and
I
like
don't know
they
if
keep
it's-
making jokes about how like this stuff isn't meant for like white people or something. Like they're sending it to like third world
So
countries.
I think
I'm
they're
like,
racist. Maybe
Yeah,
that's the thing. Is it's
but,
a
like,
it's a movie.
it doesn't
about
make
fighting
sense
white
because like
supremacists.
how is this profitable? Like,
I don't know.
How is poisoning throw like the assumption would be like, oh, the corporation is bad because they're profiting off like killing people
Right.
indirectly or something.
Right.
But like people don't make profit when they send vaccines to third world countries, do they?
Maybe that's part of the subtext. Is there's this clearly American like spoilers also.
Nobody's probably gonna watch this.
Whatever. Maybe they will. I don't know. Maybe
It's
we'll
just-
make Rendel the
yeah.
next biggest
Yeah,
superhero.
Rendel's
That'd be
the
awesome.
next
But I wonder if that's part of the subtext that just wasn't very well fleshed out, is that there's this like shadowy American guy who's like one of the only people in the movie that speaks English, and he's like, oh, you're going to do all these things. So part of me, and this is, again, I think it's one of the nuggets that's there that you could assert it in, is that they're trying to overthrow some third world country, and so as a result to do that, this company is like a black market sales group for some kind of, not vaccine, but like they're calling it a vaccine because, you know, it's what else?
It's a way of getting them to
It's
take
like
it.
a poison thing, essentially. And so
Well,
you
yeah,
could
it's-
make it.
It's got that black goop in it that he uses
Right.
to make his suit.
Right, yeah. So I was
He's
like,
they like very clearly like alluded to the fact that the vaccine was bad. He's like, don't touch that bucket. There's
Yeah,
black goop
don't
in there, and
touch
that
that
will
bucket.
it hardens when you let it dry. I'm like, okay then.
you're like, noted. But yeah, so I mean, so there's things like that where it was like, okay, and even thinking about it, I didn't connect that dot until now, that maybe that was one of the things that they were trying to assert, was that there's this other country trying to buy this more or less poison from this distributor, and because it's they're making a ton of it, like that's why they have this mob distributing it, because it's technically like no one's gonna stop them, because clearly in this city it's established that it's run down and kind of a horrible place.
Yeah, it's kind of run by the mobsters,
Right,
or
so-
whatever you call that. In
Yeah.
Finland.
So I could see that. But it just like it wasn't well fleshed out to explain like, oh, they're basically a bunch of white supremacist, racist people, or they just really don't like black people apparently, because it's like they keep saying it's not for the white man, which I don't
Yeah.
know what that means.
Yeah.
So you could build that up. You could make it interesting. I think going off of that too, I was oddly fascinated with the main villain, like this like son of this like corporation guy.
He
And like
just looked like a grunge rocker.
he did,
He had, like,
dude.
a big
It was
old beard and
incredible.
Converse
I
shoes with
loved
skinny
it. I
jeans, like,
absolutely
yeah.
loved it. He's this dude with this ginormous beard, really long, greasy hair, skinny jeans, like blue jeans, like skinny blue jeans, and Converse.
Yeah.
And he's got this like brass knuckles with knives pendant thing that he wears.
Yep.
Like, he looks like he hangs out at hipster coffee bars on the weekend. Like, that's kind of the what he looks like.
Yeah.
But he's this super insecure dad, I get everything handed to me, and like I got to prove myself to my like dad who's making all this money and running this, behind the scenes. And so the dynamic was very awkward in a lot of situations, but there was something about it where I was like, he's a terrible character, but I really like him. Like, I really
I think the type of character he is.
It was just it was so fascinating to watch, because it's like, I feel like I've never seen that done really well in an American film, where it's like, oh, I'm this insecure, it's like, oh, I'm going to prove it to you, dad. It was just very much, he's like, gets the crap beaten out of him by his dad, and like gets constantly berated. And you can like, whoever the actor was did a really good job portraying that he is like a run down, like he keeps failing, he sucks at what he does. And I was like, I'm kind of fascinated by you and like your dynamic with your dad, and this giant hulking hooligan who also I think I noticed in the fight scene at the end has like a rebel squadron like tattoo, which is pretty dope. But so apparently the Star Wars universe exists also in this thing or whatever. But it was like, I actually genuinely liked how they portrayed him and his dad. And so one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie is that scene where the dad gets the call from this corporation or whatever, and he's like, you failed again, like, you understand what happens. And he's like, yes, like my son takes over and he does this. And I thought it was cool where he like addressed, and he's like, I hope your son is more capable than you were. And I was like, you're gonna be poorly disappointed, my man. But it was like, that was like a fun effect where I was like, oh, this guy doesn't know, like he doesn't know that, and just that whole scene and how it progressed. And again, there's a lot of narrative flaws of like, I don't know how the son finds out that he has to shoot his dad or whatever. But watching that scene for itself, where he just walks in, his dad's got a drink, he walks over to this bar, it's dead silent, like it's just them walking around, there's no music playing or whatever. He goes over to the bar, he pours a drink, he like drinks it, it kind of closes up, goes close up on his face, he's just kind of like relaxed, he goes and sits down across from his dad, and he just pulls out his gun, and just like, and the whole scene is taking place in this more extended view, so we see the entire room.
Yeah.
And he's sitting across from him, pulls up the gun, and just shoots his dad. No close up, doesn't cut in. He just shoots him, and the dad is just like, isn't even like sad. He's just like, like that's it. And it was the most fascinating scene I think I've ever watched recently, where it was just like, this is incredible. Like, this is just so weird, where it's like, I've never seen recently in a film where they just let you watch this. And like, the guy isn't like, like bleeding out. He just dies in the most peaceful, like, I effed up and I'm dead and I deserve it. It was just like, I love that. Like, that was just like, man, that was cool.
Yeah, I agree. I think I didn't like take it away as being cool, but now that you talk about it like that, like, it is a cool scene because you don't see that sort of thing a lot.
Exactly.
But I think the way that they did it was poorly done.
I would agree.
It didn't have that effect on me. Like, if you didn't just take that scene for itself and kind of look at it as like a scene and a way of representing this sort of thing, like, in a way they almost didn't deserve that payoff, because like, I don't know why the son's there. What is going on? And even like the father-son dynamic, I don't think they established that well enough in a way that was like meaningful. Like, again, it was kind of like, I use Batman vs Superman for a lot of things when we talk about how to improve things, and in some ways this movie actually did feel like a very poor Zack Snyder interpretation. Like, Zack Snyder, because it was very dark, very moody, and in some ways, like, it almost feels like it was dependent on a source material that doesn't exist, in the same way that Batman vs Superman does. Like, because in Batman vs Superman, a lot of the character motivations and a lot of like the things you have to assume in some ways, like why Batman is mad at Superman and why they're doing these things and why they decide not to fight anymore and different things. And in this movie, it was the kind of same thing with like the bad guys. Like, you kind of just assume that it's a bad father-son dynamic, and you get some scenes where like he beats him, but a lot of the scenes were like, okay, that's like the most stereotypical thing you could like come up with if you're trying to establish that it's a negative father-son relation. For sure. And I agree with you. I think like having the bad guy be like the ineffectual son who like is incapable and can't do anything right, but somehow is still like this like badass mobster dude who like just guns his people down whenever they would disobey him.
And
like,
everyone's just kind of like, that's just how it is.
Yeah,
Like,
and in some ways, it's kind of like an archetype for like how bullies become bullies. Like, because they're bullied by somebody, so they bully other people.
Definitely.
And it's kind of like this like power dynamic thing that could have worked really well, but I think they didn't establish it in a way that like paid off and made you like kind of believe in the characters. Because I agree with you. I liked the bad guy being kind of like not your usual like mob.
He's not like this like super villain, like I'm a genius and I'm gonna take over the world. Like,
because normally the
kind
villain
of this hierarchy.
Normally the villain would be his dad.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was kind of like this different thing where the villain was actually like, he was both like ineffectual at doing what he was supposed to be doing. But he was very effective at somehow avoiding Rendel and like never being in the places where Rendel could get to him. And I think like those moments didn't feel like they were undeserved. Like you always got the sense of like, wow, this guy's like somehow really bad at doing his job, but also really good at like evading like harm and evading kind of like, he kind of like has this good system set up where like he gets other people to do his crap for him. In a way. For sure.
And it's, so there were a lot of scenes like that where it's like, I think from a cinematography standpoint, I think if I had to pin it, that's one of the things that I really like. The story at certain points was very lacking, and it's not to say that it couldn't have been amazing. I feel like your point of it being a movie that almost felt like it was from something but wasn't, I think that's where some of the issues came in, where it was like, you're not telling me things, which to some effect was good because I got to just kind of run with it. And and I think this is why I enjoyed this movie more than like Death Note, is I just got to run with it because there was never something that came like 20 minutes later that was like, oh, that thing, no, that, it's this. Like, it almost felt like it was never competing with itself. It just was like missing information. And 9 times out of 10, I prefer missing information than competing information, because to me, this movie is communication through the cinematography, the music, the actions, the character, the dialogue. It's all communicating. And if things start competing with itself, I don't know what to do with this movie because it doesn't make sense. And I feel like that was Ready Player One and Death Note, whereas this movie just felt like, I don't know. So I don't really know like what to do. So I think that's why I'm not as harsh on it, because I agree with you.
I think the thing that it missed most of all, and there's other things too that I would like to see improved, but
for sure,
I think like just not having all of the information that was necessary for fully like
for
really fully enjoying it and getting it and kind of walking away from it. Like with Marvel movies, thinking like, okay, I got everything I needed to get to understand what just happened and why it happened and stuff.
Exactly.
But I think there's a lot of scenes from like you said, from a cinematography perspective that were really cool. Right. And it's kind of like, in some ways, the film almost felt like a sequence of like scenes. Yeah. And they didn't do and this is again BVS, like they didn't do a very good job of like seamlessly integrating the scenes into a larger movie. In the sense where like the movie didn't feel like you just filmed a bunch of scenes and put them together and then it makes a story. It felt almost disjointed, and like you could kind of pick apart like, okay, I see what they're trying to do with this scene. I see what they're trying to do with this scene. Instead of like, this is just the movie and I don't even notice what the scenes are unless I'm really looking for them. Right. I think if you can feel the scenes just on a basic level, like it's almost, to me, it's like, I don't want to feel that because I want to experience the movie as like a singular narrative in a sense.
Definitely. And I think that's where there's a lot of things that they could have done that could have been really cool. Like because I dug through your notes a little bit before I watched it just to kind of see like, okay, how am I?
I just took notes as I was watching it.
There's a few things like, oh my gosh, that scene where the pizza guy just gets smoked out.
Like, or the one dude at the restaurant. The guy that didn't make any sense. He like fries this dude's face and everybody else in the restaurant's just like, oh, like
I'm not eating that.
They had this look of like, that's not my steak. I'm like, he just fried a dude's face off. Why aren't you freaked out and running away?
But again, that's what's kind of interesting to me, is it's things like that where I was like, this movie communicated to me that all these really horrific things, and I think that's where almost this movie had like better subtext than like other stuff that I've watched, where the subtle thing that's happening is like when these really awful, horrible things happen, no one reacts in like, oh, did he just rub that guy's face in a grill? It was just like, ugh, please clean it before you get, like, that was the face. And to me, I almost loved that because I was like, everyone in this movie is reacting that way. Like when these like guys see one of their dudes shot, that's just how it is. Yeah. When this boss guy is like, my turn to go. Like, that's just how it is. You know, when this guy gets his face rammed into a grill and like burned alive, essentially, that's just how, and not even just with like the crazy psycho, like murdering people, like just the average citizens who are at this fancy restaurant. They're like, guess he had it coming, like whatever it was.
And I think that goes back to like, I think they needed to do something at the beginning of this movie,
kind of set it up
to establish that this world is like broken.
Yeah,
other than
like,
some
no
cheesy quote about scumbags and like whatever.
Yeah,
because like I didn't really believe that these people had that much control over this city throughout the whole movie. And like you said, there's all these scenes that suggest that maybe, but because of the way that I viewed the city, it was the flip side. I was like, that reaction doesn't make sense in what you've led me to believe up to this point.
I'm curious if there were any things that communicated that to you, like the reverse. Because I think, and granted, I wouldn't say it finally started connecting until like now, like as I'm processing it, that it's like, oh, like everyone reacts that way in the entire movie. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, because I think with how violent and just how many people just like die and how many people just like get guns pulled on them and get shot. Like even at the karaoke bar, like the dude just like caps the one guy who's singing because he can't hear. And like no one in the bar is like running out screaming of like, there's a gun. Everyone's just kind of like, okay, can we sing? Like once you're done talking? Like,
I think cool? Like for me, if they don't give me anything to suggest that the city is anything other than the status quo. So like, in my mind, if it's a city, I basically assume it's like a New York or a Chicago.
Sure.
Where like, yes, there's violence, but people aren't like pacified to it in a sense where like if you see someone shot like right
next
there,
to you,
like most people are still gonna like freak out and run.
Yeah.
Or you see someone get their face fried at a restaurant, like most people are gonna be like, I'm out, like I'm gone. Like the average person's not gonna sit there and just be like, guess he deserved it. And I think like so like at a base level, if it's a city, I'm going to assume that that's the status quo. And I don't think, other than those scenes themselves, they didn't establish, and maybe it's because of the origin story and they didn't like, they did it in the flip.
Sure.
So like, I didn't know that they had actually killed his family until halfway through the movie. I thought they were still alive and he was just
going around doing this.
Like I was basically, okay, he's got some vendetta against this city. Like he's kind of a Rorschach character. He's like extremely like quote unquote like alt-right conservative type character where like he just sees like strippers and whores and like he thinks the city is like devolved into like this degenerate state. But like in my mind, that type of character is not justified in believing that. So like I didn't believe that the city was actually that way.
That they like set you up to interpret all those moments
so, like,
as that. Okay.
Unless
that makes
so
sense.
like when I get to those scenes, I'm not viewing them through the lens of like this city has gone past the tipping point of like people just view all of this violence as normal.
Sure.
And I think there probably are ways of doing that. I just don't feel like the movie did that.
Yeah.
I think, like you're saying, retroactively looking back at it, it's like, oh, that's what they were trying to do. But I don't think that's what I felt watching the movie.
Right.
I didn't feel like any of these scenes were communicating that to me because I didn't believe that that's the way the city was.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, and it's tricky too because, like I said, I think I'm also giving them the benefit of a doubt because it could have just been poor directing too. But I think because of the frequency, it seemed intentional, and because of the specific instances that it happens and the stereotypical responses we're predisposed to is like guns goes off in a karaoke bar, everyone runs outside, but they didn't, and they just sat there. So it's like, that's interesting. That's not normal. That's not what people do. And then it's like, you know, guy gets shot, you know, like pizza guy just gets like smoked, and like that's their reaction is just like shoot this guy, and they're like, oh well, whatever, you know, like.
Well, in that scene made sense to me because
it's kind of like a tense situation.
It's a tense situation, and there's really nobody around, is there?
No,
like,
not really.
At that point, everybody's
they just
gone,
all got attacked, and then it's like.
And in the karaoke bar, I didn't assume that was a karaoke bar. I assumed that was some like underground like club where all these like gangster dudes hung out.
Yeah, that could be too.
But then, and maybe I interpreted the restaurant as just a normal restaurant, but maybe that's a restaurant where all these like high profile like evil people show up.
Sure.
And so maybe it's just like a disjointed, like they're not really showing us that in some way, or maybe I think like if you have to like know something about what's going on to like understand the movie, it feels like something's wrong.
Then you should have put something earlier to cue me.
Yeah, like
what's going on.
I should 100%. Know like what scene I'm in.
Yep.
I should know. It's like basically writing principle number 1, like set the scene basically.
Right.
And I don't think they always set the scene of like,
right.
Okay, well, where are we and why does this make sense?
And
once it happens, why does this make sense?
Right, and technically, I would argue that maybe even that, and we don't need to dwell on that scene specifically at the restaurant too much, but I wonder if it almost falls apart too, because I think that guy was one of the hitmen people, and so the assumption is he's not in Finland or wherever
he's in some other part of the world.
So technically, that's kind of like a weird.
Yeah, and I think that's why, because it was in that montage
that makes sense for it
where
to
they were
be
showing all these like
really crazy people,
crazy hitmen people, and so like in my mind, I'm like, okay, these people are nuts. They're gonna do things that are counter to the norm, but they're in normal situations when they're doing it.
Yeah.
And then this guy happens, and he burns this guy's face on the grill, and they didn't like cue me into the fact that he was in some weird club where people are fine with people's faces being burned.
Right.
And I think
right.
We're dwelling on the scene, but I think that's just...
I think it's the general vibe of like a lot of the things that happen. And I think that's kind of my like big takeaway was that it's like it's scenes and moments and feelings like that I think were right there, but they just didn't flush it out, or they didn't do it intentionally, and they had something really special there that I think would have been really, frankly, like incredible. Like I think that would have been an incredible feeling to watch this movie and be like, this world is so messed up that no one really cares that it's like, oh, that dude just got shot in the face. Like,
glad
like it wasn't me.
It could be a commentary on like violence and people being becoming like
just
numb
so
to it
desensitized that like a dude, some dude just wielding a gun in a club and shooting some guy because he's singing and doing what he's supposed to, like that's fine. Also, because we were just talking about the hitmen, I just want to get this out there. This was so funny to me, but the build up for Radek, that like one English guy, and it's like, Radek, call Radek, and they're like, oh, get Radek, and it's just some like dude who looks like this middle-aged dad bod kind of guy.
Yeah, that part annoyed me because they have this whole montage.
That was funny.
They have this whole montage where they show all these like mercenaries who are like super intense and like crazy. They're burning people's faces on grills. They're shooting people in the street. They're like,
Jimmy,
nuts.
I can't talk right now. I'm giving flying lessons.
And then like the next scene, Radek or Rendel comes to their place, and beats them all in like 5 minutes.
Yep.
And just throws a hatchet at him, and he's down. And
I'm
like, what? Where was the payoff? And I think like that's another thing with this movie of like a lot of like the scenes, like the fight scenes that could have been dope. It's kind of like when you're writing, like when I'm writing my own stories and like I get to a section where I'm like, oh, this is going to be really dope, but I don't have any ideas. So I'm going to write 2 sentences and then it's done. It felt like it would get to all these like really dope like scenes that would
and
be
then
like,
they fight.
Awesome, epic like superhero fight scenes.
Yeah.
And then he just throws a hatchet at him and he's down. I'm like, where was the Radek that you guys just built up? I wanted to see like Radek versus Rendel, like 5 minutes, like hallway fight scene with Daredevil or something.
Yeah.
Like and you could again argue that this Rendel guy is like ineffectual as well because he's just a financial guy who decided to become a superhero. But again, I don't think they established that as his character.
And there's moments and I think that's part of the thing that they didn't tell me this, but they showed me this, is that I don't really know what kind of fighter he is.
Yeah.
I don't like, and again, I think that's
or
something that could have been,
right.
And I think that could have been something really amazing is if they had like a montage scene of something where he goes into this vendetta stage, this vendetta mindset. Like he almost died. His wife and his daughter are dead and they got murdered in front of him. He's like, I'm going to become this dude that they fear. And so they do, even if it was like 30 seconds of clips of him just like punching stuff or like starting fights in the street or like, I don't know, just doing something to communicate this financial guy learned how to beat people up. And I think the part about the Radek fight and some of the other fights I think that didn't sit well with me and could have been done better is Rendel apparently is this like super dope superhero guy, and he's kind of this vigilante. He's more or less a vigilante. He's a vigilante superhero. Yeah. And I think with the scene where he just chucks the hatchet at Radek, that could have been really cool of like he wipes through all these people with it just effortlessly, like doing, more interesting scenes or whatever. And then he gets to this fight and there's this like, this guy like, come on, let's fight. And he throws an axe at him and he like catches it in the air and he just zings it back and just nails him. And he's like, whatever, this scrub. Cause then you're like, dang, Rendel's got skills. Yeah. Whereas I felt like he almost got taken out by this other chick who's like very creepy. She was something else.
Yeah,
but
I was like,
I don't like this. But like you have her who I'm like, she put up more of a fight than like Radek Radek. Like that to me was part of the communication error and breakdown where it was like, I don't know about that. And I think the way they remedy that, and especially a lot of the other fight scenes too, to fix it is, and I think they did a really good job. They did a better job with the whatchamacallit, the big tattoo,
dude.
the buff
dude.
I was
like, okay, this is finally like some sort of
This
payoff.
is a good one, yeah.
Yeah.
And they did a better job with that. And I think I wanted to know, and I think this is maybe where like I'm almost kind of bummed because I feel like Rendel could have been a really dope like take on superhero stuff because he's very dark and it's a very dark movie. And there's this, and just shout out to the writer of like the dark comedy in this movie. Like I loved that. I absolutely loved it. Of just like, that was probably the highlight, my favorite part of the entire movie is like when the, Radek again, they're in the fight at that complex or whatever. And he's like, let's fight loud. He's yelling. And then Rendel just like steps on this thing and crushes him with the car. And just like that they sit there with the camera and it's not like hard cut and then he's gone. It literally, he's like stands there for a second and he just walks off. And like, I loved that. Like that to me was super like,
and I think
like dark comedy.
I think a lot of the scenes that happened, like, again, they suggest things that could work if they had set them up properly.
Yep.
And I think a lot of the time the fights didn't play out the way I expected them to because he ended up being like a more of like a scrappy type of fighter. Like he doesn't necessarily like have fighting skills. He has more like environmental skills where he sees things that other people don't, like, oh, there's a car above him, I can use this to my advantage, or I can use I can chuck a hatchet at him and just take him out, or like using stuff like that where like he's almost like he uses traps and uses environmental things to like fight people. But again, there was nothing that suggested that's what type of fighter he was other than the fights themselves.
Right.
And I think like you need more than just the fights themselves. You need more than just the scenes to make me believe in like what type of character this is. You need to like, they didn't really like set up his character at all. Yeah. Because again, the setup was halfway through the movie. Right. Of like all the things that you would expect to have a setup. You don't need an origin story, but you need something to make me believe the type of hero this is. Yeah. And it kind of felt like I said, it felt like a Punisher in a way, but I think like it felt like somebody who didn't understand the type of Punisher character. Like the movie felt like it was a commentary of violence in some ways. Yeah. But like the Punisher is usually a commentary on violence in like a deconstruction sense, in the fact that like it's not really like reveling in the fact of, like, we've talked about this on the podcast before, like you can interpret Punisher as like reveling in violence, but I think like a lot of the comics, like Garth Ennis's run on Punisher, like it's usually a deconstruction of superheroes in general and kind of showing like this is like the line that people could cross and what would happen if they crossed that line. Yeah. These people who call themselves heroes.
And they think that they're in the right.
And they think that they're in the right, and this is the type of violence and destruction that will come of it. And sort of. And this movie wasn't really doing that deconstructionist perspective, which isn't necessarily bad, but it felt like it wasn't saying anything then. Yeah. And like, I agree. Then you're just reveling in violence. And it's like, if you're not going to do anything with it, then I don't know, it just feels weird. Like it feels like, what is the point? Like, what do you... Yeah. And you don't, like... I'm not trying to say, like, you can't just have violence for violence sake, because there's plenty of movies that are just that, like 300 or The Watchmen is a lot... Like, the movie Watchmen is a lot like that. And, like, those types of movies work, in a sense. Sure. But I think this one was trying to do something with that didn't really, like, do it. And I think in my mind, this is just my takeaway from the movie, I think it just comes down to, like, they weren't communicating the message clearly of, like, what they wanted us to get out of this movie. Right. Like, what kind of superhero movie is this? What kind of... And I think you need to do that in this day and age. Yeah. I think this could have gotten away with it a long time ago, but I think we've had so many good superhero movies that have shown us, like, these are the characteristics and things you need for, like, a superhero film to work. Just quality storytelling. Yeah, that too. And in a lot of ways, like, it did feel to me like Batman vs Superman felt. Yeah, but like obviously less of a budget and less quality. Like,
well, I don't know, man. Like, I googled it because I almost wanted to call it a low budget film, but I looked. So it was 145 million euro, and I did that to dollars, and that's about 163 mil in US dollar. So to put that in perspective, Iron Man 1, which came in 2008, was 140 mil US dollar. And Captain America, the first Captain America, was 140.
BVS was 250 to 300.
So I mean, so it's definitely not a low budget film.
Yeah. So
it's
that being said, it felt like a low budget film.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a low budget film.
Right. And I wonder too, and to give a benefit of a doubt as well, and I think it's tough because there's a lot of stuff that like I think could have been really good. Like so one example, like this was the big thing I wanted to throw out there that would have been super awesome to me, is he has this mask. Like he's just gotten nailed in the face with a nailed baseball bat, essentially.
Yep.
He should be dead. He got Negan'd essentially in the face, and he's alive somehow. And so he like wakes up. First of all, too, though, just to take one step back, that scene was really well done.
Oh,
I thought.
yeah, the origin scene.
That was like
place,
probably
yeah.
That scene and the scene with the son and the dad were like two of the best in the whole movie. Like they did it justice. Like you got to see everything. They like made the son that's still that awkward, like has a huge power issue complex, and like his burly bro dude who's just like there, and like, you know, just the silence, like when Rendel sees his wife and his daughter shot, and like it was intense. Like that was one of the best scenes in the film, and that with the son and the dad too. And I felt like they just understood how to do like the slower moments really, really well. But
honestly,
then the moments,
if that scene was at the beginning,
that would have been like, oh fudge,
that would have
like
solved a lot of the problems, I think, because I would have seen how, like, to what extent these like people would go to like protect their asset. Like they just killed this dude's wife and girl right in front of him. Like I'd be like, oh, this city is messed up. This bad guy is messed up, and this Rendell dude, like he's on a vendetta.
He's
I think like
dude.
those three things, like that's why you need an origin story, because like in this type of film, you need to believe that this hero his vendetta is right in a sense.
Definitely
within the context of the film. Yeah. So
no, for sure.
But no, I agree that like quote unquote origin story that happens is like that was some really good stuff.
And I liked it too. Again, and I liked it too because it's been done before. The family gets murdered, but it was how they did it, and they established that it's like he falls on hard times and he gets fired from this company, and so to support his family in this, like, you know, what we're assuming is a really awful city, country, wherever, it's hard and there's not a lot of jobs, and he's been fired from a ton of jobs, and so he signs up with some shady people. And so that to me is incredibly fascinating, because there are very, very, very few mainstream superheroes where they did something shady, paid a huge penalty for it, and then now we're out for blood to like murder everybody that killed their...
Well, I don't know if you noticed this, but... And this could have been a lot cooler, I think, if they would have done it right. But the guy that got him fired was the guy that got his kneecap shot.
Yeah, I did notice that.
Guy. And I was like, whoa, that's actually kind of cool. Like, there's this weird triangle of involvement where, like, he actually got him fired, but now he actually needs to use him in some senses. And
but now
he
they
actually
both got
saved the guy.
And, like...
But they didn't like do enough with that. That would. I feel like that triangle there could have been really cool.
Yeah, and totally. And I caught that, and I was like, oh, that's the guy, and like he's in a wheelchair now, and like because he got beat the snot out of him.
It is an interesting scenario because like he has a vendetta against these people, but he was actually helping them for a long time.
Exactly.
And he knew that they were bad.
Right.
He had to have, and so like he's almost like responsible in a way. So like that again could add to like his character motivation of like, I need to right. His name means like order and like righteousness or something like that. So like his character is basically like trying to right these wrongs, both that were done against him, but that he did against other people.
Definitely.
And so like the stuff is there for this to be like a really good movie, I think.
Yeah, there's so much depth that's just like sitting there, just waiting to be tapped into. And I think that's why I wasn't as hard on it, is because it was like, it's moments like that where I was like, it's right there. You're so close. You're right there. You just didn't do an order that like capitalized on this.
Now thinking about it, we didn't even talk about this part, but I think one of the things that might have ruined my perception of the film was the voice, because like, I don't know what they did, and maybe I watched a different version than you, but like, you could tell that they were speaking in Finnish, but for some reason they dubbed over it with English, like very poorly done English voices. Was
the whole movie in English?
Yeah.
Oh, you watched a completely different version than I did.
Was yours in Finnish?
Mine was in Finnish with English subtitles.
Okay, so
and there was like 3 characters that were actually speaking English.
I feel like I watched a very different version than you.
That's a very
I'll have to show you some clips because you'll understand my perspective.
Oh, I can imagine.
Because like, not only was the voice off because you could tell they were speaking in Finnish, but it was like those old like Chinese or Japanese movies
like
where like
movies,
where they like say this really long sentence and then it's like a short English
talking.
thing. Yeah. And like it was that sort of thing.
Oh, dude.
And I think partially like that was jarring to me because like and I tried to look. I was like, can I play this in like Finnish with subtitles? And there wasn't an option.
Weird.
But I think the problem was it was free on Amazon Prime to like stream. And maybe that's just the only version they had.
That makes sense because because there were people who spoke English in the version I watched, but it was like 2 characters. Like Radek spoke English. There was like some of the assassin people that spoke English, and like the mega corporation villain guy in the dark who spoke English.
So I think if everyone I had watched
in
Finnish,
spoke in Finnish with English subtitles.
Okay. So, mine was all English voice acted, but still with like
interesting
Finnish speaking.
Yeah. Maybe that's why I'm have a little bit.
You have
more
a different perspective.
Yeah,
I'll have to show you some clips because you'll understand what I watched for.
Yeah, definitely. So to jump back. I think like there's a lot of depth that's like right there. That was me. I was shifting.
Oh, I was like, what is going on?
Probably sounded like a little tooty toot. But I think there's a lot of depth there, and I think there's things that they just didn't fully tap into, and that's why they didn't. Because like. What I loved is that this wasn't even like a Punisher copy. This was like its own thing of like a hero rooted in darkness, like rooted in like a very violent situation. Like it's not like a Deadpool where he's like, Deadpool, he's cracking jokes and like murdering people.
Yeah.
It's literally like he helped bad people. He got screwed over. His buddy got screwed over. Now he lost his family. And now he's at a point where he's like, I'm going to kill them. I'm going to murder them. And I was like, in that way, he's interesting thing.
He's more like Rorschach from Watchmen. Sure. In a way, like, we're not supposed to actually like him. We're not supposed to believe that he's doing what's right.
Yeah.
But we're supposed to think he's pretty BA. Like, okay, this dude's going to do whatever it takes to, like, root out evil in this city. And I think all of the pieces are there. Like, everything is there to, like, make this be, like, a really awesome, like, superhero thing.
Definitely.
And if you can look past, like, the disjointedness of it, like, it is there.
It's entertaining. Yeah. Like, I genuinely, that's why I was like, it was kind of entertaining and fun to watch. And this was, like, my big thing. We got sidetracked on the chuckling, but this is, like, my big last thought, I guess. And I think would have been super cool, just in terms of a missed opportunity that could have been really, really, really incredible, and I think really, really unique, is that this mask that he makes is made of some like polyester, like plastic,
whatever they put in the vaccine,
right? And the way he gets it is he like rubs it on his face so thick. Is the assumption?
Is that what he's doing?
Yeah, that's what he's doing. Is he like puts the stuff on his face, and
I didn't
which one gives some issues because I don't know how he's breathing, but that's a whole different thing.
He kind of has little slits, I guess.
But I mean, that's even another interesting part is like, is he dead this whole time? Like, is this like a Crow situation where some force that isn't well explained in the movie like resurrects him, and now he's out to fight people? Because like, there's no way that this guy is breathing in that mask. And basically what he does is he wakes up from that hit, and he goes downstairs and he's in agony. In that whole sequence, he like takes this goop and he's like rubbing it on his face, and then he's like carving it to actually make it stylized. And so he's got this like carbon fiber, polyester, or whatever the frick that material is, like in this mask. And I would have thought this character was like, and I even still kind of do think even if they would have done this, I would have been just so stoked if they would have made it that based on his origin and based on his story, he worked for this corporation he knew was evil. He kept silent in the entire movie. In all these fighting scenes, he's silent. He doesn't say anything. He flips off the camera when these guys are looking at him. He points at him, doesn't say a word. And his whole thing as he puts on this mask is he was like, my silence led to the death of the people I love, and so I will remain silent until I've exacted my revenge. And so his whole thing is like, I'm going to exact my revenge so I can break this silence and know that I spoke up through my actions. And then at the end, like, he takes his mask off or he like cracks it off or something, is like, this is like this prison that he's put on himself to like, as like not even like punishment, but as a like, I can't remove this mantle literally until I have done what I should have done.
Yeah.
And like that
like
being
giving
the
more
metaphor.
meaning to his visual. Yeah,
exactly.
Like, because the only meaning they gave to it was like that guy explained to him what the stuff they were putting in the vaccine was.
Right.
So like somehow that like became his identity, but they didn't
Right.
really like. I think what you're saying is absolutely right. Like adding some sort of depth behind.
Yeah.
Behind
and
behind like, because like Batman became Batman because one of his fears was bats, so he like became the thing that he feared the most. Or like most heroes tend to like don the thing that like plagues them, or like or something that is inspiring or whatever. But his visual aesthetic, other than he got this motorcycle jacket from his wife as a gift and stuff. So
which like, again, it has some emotional significance.
It has some emotion, but I think
but it was missing other pieces.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I think like I'm interested to see what this director does. He's got a couple other movies actually. But again, I think like it did feel like a Zack Snyder type film where like it likes to brood, it likes to focus on like these violent themes of things, and like Zack Snyder's made some really good films in my opinion, like with 300 or with Watchmen, and I liked Justice League, his half of whatever that was, but again, Zack Snyder's also made bad films, so I think like I'm interested to see what else he does, because like I think people can make a bad movie and still I think people can improve their craft. I don't know how long this guy's even been at it. Like this could have been his second movie for all we know.
Sure.
So I don't know. I'm excited for more. I think like this definitely intrigued me, and maybe I need to watch it again with the different voicing, because
for sure.
like the voice thing really did put a bad taste in my mouth. I was like, this is bad.
I could see that being really difficult, because I don't think I would have liked it as much, but like being able to see the actual like dialogue and stuff and not being like I think that would have made me
I almost would have liked more, like, because at the beginning they have that one quote by him and then he doesn't say a single thing through the whole movie. I almost would have liked more, like, if anything, like narration from his character.
Definitely.
And even if it was cheesy, like I was kind of, once that line hit off, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be good.
Boy. Yeah.
But then he didn't say a single thing the rest of the time. I thought he was going to be like this hero who like always has a one-liner for the guy he just killed or something.
Yeah.
Or like even just at the end, like when he crushed the dude with the car, I wanted him to say like some just like both like dope but also kind of cheesy line to him. But there was nothing else after that first line.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what's difficult is if the first line of the whole movie that we see is like, I was silent and I lost what I loved because of my silence. And that's it. Like that's the only line you see. The rest of the movie all of a sudden is like, frick, dude. Like
different
it's
aesthetic.
Completely different. Like,
but because of that first line,
you're like, listen here, you immoral bastards.
Yeah,
like,
it led me to believe he was like Rorschach sort of character. Like he has this vendetta and he kind of like speaks to himself, but he doesn't really talk to other people or something.
For sure. Yeah, so I mean, I honestly, I had a lot of fun with it. It was definitely not an amazing movie. There was a lot of stuff that was like, oh, this is corny and flawed. But there was a lot of stuff where I like laughed out loud. Like those two like buddy dudes who screwed up the, they're like, we were supposed to take care of him. Like we took him to the hospital. And he's like, you were supposed to murder him. And he's like, oh, like just stuff like that. He's like, I told you.
Yeah, kind of adding humor to the darkness.
Or like when he's like, dude, this is so dope. Like we're all cool. Like this is so official and we've got guns. And then they hear like the gunshots go off and they're like, we're going to bail, right? Yeah, we're going to bail. Like you had to leave out. Rendel's right there. So like there were moments like that I was like, I absolutely love that. And like even with like the darkness and the grittiness, it was still dark and gritty humor. And like it fit for me and I liked it a lot. But I think in terms of the depth behind Rendel's motivations and his character, there were so many things on the table that were right there. That if you make the whole movie about like Rendel being this character who lost his family and his love, you know, like he lost what he loved because he didn't say anything and he built up his own welfare with his, you know, like doing this dirty work, and then everyone dies, and now he takes this like silent pledge and then he fights the whole movie and like won't remove his mask until he's exacted his revenge.
Mm-hmm.
Then at the end, all of a sudden, it's like it's this catharsis for us, even in like a single movie, to be like, he did it. He got what he wanted. And where it is now, the rhythm and the pacing is a little off and it's a little disjointed. And I think if they would have moved stuff around and they would have given more narrative depth to Rendel's decision to actually fight crime and to like fight these people, this might have been one of my favorite superheroes in a way. Just with how unique they were setting him up to potentially be. I don't think he actually was, but I think he was so close to being actually like a really, really interesting take on superheroes. So that's kind of my
I'll be
thought.
interested to see if he like comes up with a sequel or something.
Man, based on that ending, I'm so sure that they've got one coming.
Yeah,
but I'd probably watch it. Like it,
I'd watch it.
I always think that the majority of the time sequels are always better. You know,
it has a 4.8 out of 10 on IMDb, which isn't good, but it's also better than I thought it would get, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm curious with like Death Note. What does Death Note have? Or even like Ready Player. Well, Ready Player One is probably higher just because people have the.
I mean, that movie was received pretty well.
Yeah,
I think we just had Death Note's got a 4.5, so I guess that's means nothing. 4.8 means nothing in the context.
Sure,
it's about on the same level as Death Note.
Right. So, but anyway,
I enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed it more than Death Note and a lot of the other movies we've been watching recently.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of things they did wrong, but I think there was a lot of stuff there that like there's inklings of something that could be there, and if they do a sequel, hopefully this guy like improves his craft as he goes on, because it looks like this might be one of his first movies,
which is incredible.
So if this was somebody's first directorial, like their directorial debut,
dude, like if this was my first movie, it probably would have been like, all right, so you're gonna punch him in the face like right here, and it's just So as a first run, like it was very well done. And again, it's not an amazing movie, but I definitely enjoyed it, and it was like a fun, like, again, it was very much like Super Mario Bros. Or Punisher Warzone.
They got a store and you can buy his mask.
Oh, dude, that's so dope.
120, whatever that symbol is, whatever
Euro?
Finnish people use.
I think it's a
Euro probably. 120 euros.
That's pretty. That's
awesome.
Actually not bad. I'd buy.
They got like a little figure of him like standing like this. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if he improves each time, I'll watch the next one just to see what happens. Like
absolutely.
It was good enough that it intrigued me.
Yeah,
and I think to be honest, it was basically what I expected, because like when we first saw it, we're like, this movie's going to be a joke, but like in some ways we're intrigued by it because you and I kind of like
I'm not expecting
dark,
Infinity
brooding
War
type superhero type stuff.
Yeah,
so like I don't know, thought it was decent.
Yeah,
so
definitely. So if by chance this gets back to them, good run. We look forward to the sequel.
We look forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. So any other closing thoughts or things, or we'll sign off here?
Yeah, I think that's about it.
Tight.
My only other thought is there was some the music choice was interesting.
Yeah, maybe work on not putting like funky dance pop.
Yeah, but I guess maybe that's a Finnish thing.
That could be.
I think
don't know.
For some reason Northern Europeans have a lot of like dance pop tunes or something.
Nah.
But
to each their own, I guess.
Yeah, to each their own.
So
I'd love some more like heavy metal or something.
Yeah, dude.
But
like that intro track on the DVD.
Finnish is like death metal.
Oh, it's like
man.
death metal.
Where's
Dude, if this had a death metal track, oh my gosh, it would have been even
well, he's
better.
Like shredding people.
Give meaning behind the mask and put like raining blood in there, and it just would have been, incredible. So, but anyway.
Yeah, other than that, I don't have any other thoughts.
Cool. Well, we'll sign off then. Thanks for listening to this first episode of our Superheroes of April series, I guess we'll call it. You can check out this episode and any previous episodes on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, and Spotify. Next week, we're going to be talking about Shazam. We actually did do kind of a like preview how we think and hope DC will change episode, and that's episode 41 if you want to go back on any of those platforms and find it. You can follow Phil and I on Twitter at I am Phil Sorensen and at JK in Pop Culture. We also have a Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for the show, which is at Pop Culture Punks. Phil's also on Instagram at I am Phil Sorensen. Feel free to send us any like direct messages or emails, posts, whatever on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or our Gmail, which is popculturepunks@gmail.com. And as I promised, we have 2 new designs that are up.
Did you put those
on
up?
Redbubble and Threadless. Yep.
Dope.
So those are up. Pretty proud of them. They're kind of like a more neon punk vibe, so they're a little more like sketchy looking. Not sketchy as in like creepy, but like they've kind of got a spray paint sketch vibe.
More
going
punky.
on. More punk. So they're a little more universal. So yeah, definitely check those out at Rebel and Threadless. Any proceeds go to the show. I've literally made them like from a seller rate as low as they can possibly go, I think, and everything. So we appreciate the $1. I got you $1. And that's pretty much it. So Shazam next week. And yeah, buckle up for a lot of superhero chat in April. So
Gonna be talking lots of heroes.
Yeah, buddy. This has been Rendel Dark Vengeance. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next one. And we bid you a fond Finnish cowabunga.